You are live.
Great, thank you very much, LTV. We welcome to our meeting this evening. Prior to this, we were in an executive session where we were going over hiring and contracts. So it's 7:15. I'd like to call the meeting to order. Julie, would you do roll call, please?
Here, Barbara Dayton.
Here.
Tim Fraser.
Here.
Dave Conlon.
Here.
Amy Rivera. And Pat Freeman.
Here.
And if we could all rise for the pledge of allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. We're going to have a couple of presentations this evening. First one on Martin Luther King Jr. with our 6th grade class. So
Christine will do introductions. Good evening, everyone. Hello, board. So I'm very proud tonight to introduce a trio of amazing teachers. We have Miss Lucy Yardley, Miss Danielle Hamilton, and Miss Vicki Firemark. They teach at the 6th grade level. And this year, they took the time and effort to work with our 6th graders and submitting a beautiful art project to the New York State Education Department and the Office of General Services. Martin Luther King Jr. Day is always commemorated by New York State Ed with a student fine art and essay exhibition. And this year, not only did they submit a fine arts project, but they also had a voiceover video that went with the beautiful art projects. And it all relays the message of Dr. King's principles of nonviolence. So I don't want to steal their thunder, but I will say I want to thank them personally for taking this project and really running with it and really giving the kids some social emotional learning and some beautiful, beautiful diversity experience. So I'm going to turn it over to them at this point. Good evening. Can you hear me okay? Yes. Okay. My name is Danielle Hamilton. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here this evening to present our 6th grade project, which has been titled We Lead Nonviolent Lives. Thank you for giving us the time to speak with you about it. So I wanted to give a quick overview of how this all unfolded. It began with reading an email that Christine sent, which explained that New York State was hosting an art and essay exhibitions. Once we realized that this was not a contest and that student work would be honored rather than judged, we decided to propose this idea to the students, and they were enthusiastic. We decided to embrace the art component first and the essay second, kind of like having dessert before dinner. The artwork focused on MLK's 6 principles of nonviolence. So I don't have a very strong background in art. I needed some help. So I called out to Colleen McGowan, who was a retired art teacher from Spring School, and she was very open to our ideas. She was generous with her time and her knowledge. In addition to having a strong connection with our school, Colleen also has a strong connection with the Anna Litton Foundation. After listening to our proposed idea for this project, Colleen suggested that we reach out to Kate Rabinowitz, the founder of the Anna Litton Foundation. Through the generosity of the foundation, we were given 70 12 by 12 canvases, the expertise and the time of 2 visiting artists, and we were also supplied with paint. The art teachers here at school then filled in the gaps for the supplies we still needed, such as markers, paper, and stencils, just to name a few. Once the project was finished, Kate introduced us to media specialist and miracle worker Anne-Marie McCoy. She created a slideshow of the students' artwork, including a voiceover of the students reading MLK and Gandhi's principles of nonviolence. It's important to note that this was a community effort overall. We had the support of our administration. They always made time to listen to our ideas. Thank you so much for that. You were supportive of our visiting artists, which meant the world. Christine, thank you for making sure we did not have a fire drill while the visiting artists were here. That meant a lot, as you know. Also, I want to acknowledge Laura Marino and Morgan Bach. They beautifully arranged the supplies that we needed. Furthermore, Morgan shared her room with us when we had an overflow of students or a scheduling conflict. Teachers throughout the school, as well as families, donated supplies such as paper towels and newspapers, while special area teachers rearranged their schedules to accommodate us. Finally, I'd like to give a big thank you to Owen McCormack for sharing a very captivating and inspiring version of MLK's I Have a Dream speech. The students wholeheartedly embraced it, as did we. Thank you. Lucy.
This project developed into a well-rounded and comprehensive learning experience, which encompassed many academic skills. Martin Luther King was a very powerful speaker with a rich vocabulary, and as we listened to his speeches and read about his life, we were able to draw upon his words as well as through our classroom discussions to unpack the profound message and meaning of the principles. Students then reflected on one principle that really resonated with most to them, thinking about how they could represent this principle symbolically through their artwork. First, sketching those ideas before transforming them to their canvases. When preparing for the recording of the voiceover, students had the opportunity to practice their public speaking skills, such as tone, intonation, and pacing. They were learning experience, and there were a variety of them that led us to this end product. Not only did this project address academic learning, it also addressed social and emotional learning. Every student shined, whether it was through their art, through their writing, or through their speaking. And it was especially powerful and special to bear witness to our students who typically tend to be more reserved and on the shy side really embrace this project and become leaders in the classroom and take their struggling classmates kind of under their wings to help guide them through this, because this was a moment where they got to shine and they were confident and they were proud of their work, and to be able to be a leader was really so special for them. In addition to our students who have difficulty communicating and representing things in a more abstract way, they were able to navigate through this and problem solve by conveying their message through words. And once they were able to pick the right words, then they were able to find a symbol to represent it in their artwork. So it was really incredible to witness this, and we're just so proud of everything that these students have done so far through this project. We'd like to take a moment now to view the final product with you. Mr. Rubin, if you can.
Jason, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
If my speaker is off, is the sound going to come out through you?
I'm sorry, repeat that.
If my speaker is off, muted, is the sound going to come out through you? Because this is a live video with sound and pictures and video.
Yeah, I think you're going to have to play it through the computer, as opposed to out the speakers of the computer.
I don't know how that's going to work. We're going to try, I guess.
Engineer wanted people to understand and make choices.
Not going to work. Because I'm connected to this.
so we can just say where they can find it.
You got it?
I don't think we're going to be able to, there seems to be some technical difficulty, but this is available on the
Well, then
school's
we'll cut-
website.
if I connect to the board, I'm gonna cut Zoom off.
Okay.
Yeah,
On the school website?
Too much stuff to connect to.
Or not?
It's just on that, okay.
Oh, okay.
Yours is just because it doesn't have sound and video, that's.
There's
Well,
no-
built anticipation. But like
I mean,
Victor
it's on the
Storymark said, it is posted on the spring school website. It's also
Can you
posted.
put it on that screen like Barbara just asked?
Go on there.
If we have access, I'd love to log on. I have no problem pulling it up for you, but take just a moment.
You log on to here, John?
I think we're going
There's a
over there.
Chromebook here. Well, Vicky Storymark is doing that. I did have an opportunity to reach out to someone in the field regarding this project. Spring School made the press release for this project from New York State. It is mentioned as one of the highlights of this year's exhibit are 2 group projects. 76 students from Spring School, the Free School District in East Hampton, Long Island, created a video slideshow entitled "Relieve Nonviolent Lives," which showcases artwork and students reading their essays. I'm very proud of that. And Fred Zeal is going to present to the Spring School 6th graders and their teachers a proclamation in your honor. And that is read on the floor of the assembly as well. So it'll be always there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
We want to just mention what the plan is for the artwork.
Of course, yeah, okay, so.
Well, setting up.
Okay, so while, the computer's being dealt with, I'll just speak quickly about the next steps for this project because it just keeps evolving. Things, wonderful things keep spinning off of it, so it's really not over. So the next steps are going to be to get the artwork framed. And we have 2 samples of what a completed piece would look like. So these show 2 canvases that have been framed. Right now, I just submitted a grant to the Greater East Hampton Educational Foundation for the money for the frames. Okay. And what we're envisioning is our hallways as like an art gallery. We're hoping our 6th graders could eventually become docents and lead little tours, which would further enhance their understanding of the principles of nonviolence. Because as we all know, if you can speak about something well, that means you're truly a master of it. So that is, that's our next step. So thank you. Is it going to work, do you
I
think?
hope so.
Okay, here we go.
Open the top, right.
Martin Luther King Jr. wanted people to understand and nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people.
An active nonviolent resistance to evil.
The second principle is nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding.
The end result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation. The third principle is nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Nonviolence recognizes that evildoers are also victims.
The fourth principle is nonviolence holds that suffering can educate and transform.
Nonviolence willingly accepts the consequences to its acts. The fifth principle is nonviolence chooses love instead of hate.
Nonviolence resists violence to the spirit as well as the body.
Nonviolent love is active, not passive.
Nonviolent love does not sink to the level of the hater.
Love restores community and resists injustice. Nonviolence recognizes the fact that all life is interrelated.
Martin Luther King fue una personalidad que no necesitaba.
Él es un hombre bueno, honorable, que ayudó a las personas que necesitaban ayuda.
Nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people.
The second principle is nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding.
The end result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation. The third principle is nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people. Nonviolence recognizes that evildoers are also victims. The fourth principle is nonviolence holds that suffering can educate and transform. Nonviolence willingly accepts the consequences to its acts. The fifth principle is nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence resists violence to the spirit as well as the body. Nonviolent love is active, not passive. Nonviolent love does not sink to the level of the hater. Martin Luther King Jr. was inspired by the teachings of Gandhi. Gandhi had 8 principles of nonviolence. His first principle of nonviolence was respect. Gandhi wants people to vow to respect others and the interconnectedness of all life. His second principle of nonviolence is understanding.
Gandhi wants people to vow to understand why people act the way they do.
His third principle of nonviolence is acceptance.
Gandhi hopes that people will vow to accept the differences of others.
His fourth principle of nonviolence is appreciating differences. Gandhi wanted people to not just accept people's differences, but to sincerely celebrate those differences. His fifth principle of nonviolence is about truth and truthfulness. This means that people need to commit to be truthful and authentic and be willing to confront untruth wherever they find it. Gandhi's sixth principle of nonviolence is absorbing suffering. This means that all people need to understand that forms of nonviolence cannot be totally eliminated, unfortunately, and that when people are confronted with the untruth, they may suffer inside. Gandhi's seventh principle of nonviolence is being nonviolent with an adversary. This means that people need to help their adversaries avoid all suffering. Gandhi's eighth principle of nonviolence is trusteeship constructive action. This means that I promise to do my part to make things fair for all. Martin Luther King Jr. has a way for people to lead nonviolent lives. There are 6 steps for us to follow. Step 1, gather information. Learn all that you can about the problems you see in your community through the media, social and civic organizations, and by talking to the people involved. Step 2, educate others. Armed with your new knowledge, it is your duty to help those around you, such as neighbors, relatives, friends, and coworkers, better understand the problems facing society.
Step 3, remain committed. Accept that you will have to face many obstacles and challenges as you work to improve society. Always try to encourage and inspire others.
Peacefully negotiate. Talk with both sides. Use humor, intelligence, and grace to lead to solutions that benefit the greater good.
Step 5, take action peacefully. Protesting peacefully, letter writing, and signing petitions can help others see. Step 6, reconcile. Agree to disagree with people and with groups as you work to improve society. In addition to having 6 steps of nonviolence, Martin Luther King Jr. also had 6 principles of nonviolence. The first principle is nonviolence is a way of life for courageous people. It is an active, nonviolent resistance to evil. The second principle is nonviolence seeks to win friendship and understanding. The end result of nonviolence is redemption and reconciliation.
The third principle is nonviolence seeks to defeat injustice, not people.
Nonviolence recognizes that evildoers are also victims. The fourth principle is nonviolence holds that suffering can educate and transform. Nonviolence willingly accepts the consequences to its acts. The fifth principle is nonviolence chooses love instead of hate. Nonviolence resists violence to the spirit as well as the body. Nonviolent love is active, not passive. Nonviolent love does not sink to the level of the hater. Love restores community and resists injustice. Nonviolence recognizes the fact that all life is interrelated. The sixth principle is nonviolence believes that the universe is on the side of justice. The nonviolent resistor has deep faith that justice will eventually win. Martin Luther King Jr. wanted people to understand.
Thank you, ladies.
Nice job.
We have another presentation this evening from John Knight going over the science curriculum.
So along the same lines of giving our students the best possible learning experiences, I'm going to turn it over to Mr. Knight, who's our science coordinator, and our K-5 science teacher, along with Mr. Schwab, who is our 8th grade science teacher, and Miss Megan Lyden, who is our 7th grade science teacher, sorry. Okay.
All right. Well, that's a little tough to follow. We'll try our best. So in this presentation, we were asked, these are some of the goals that we want to get through towards the end, is to review some of the changes that have come up in the next generation science standards. We're going to show how we are going to go through and change our scope and sequence to match those over time, how we're going to include STEAM and to incorporate it into our whole curriculum, and then what we're going to need from you to help make this happen. So the changes in the next generation science standard, the framework is designed to help realize a vision for education, the science and engineering, in which children over the years of school actively engage in scientific and engineering principles and applying these cross-cutting concepts to deepen their understanding of some of these core ideas. And really the main gist of what we're looking at with the next generation science standards is we're taking less and going deeper into it is the main goal, so a better understanding. So there's 3 main dimensions to that. You're going to have the science and engineering practices, basically what they do, the cross-cutting concepts. That is, for example, looking at comparing and contrasting, doing different skills throughout all the different sciences. And then you have the disciplinary core, the physical, earth, biology parts to it. One of the parts that it took me a little bit to grasp was getting used to this anchor phenomenon. Now, luckily at Springs, and we've had this science program that we've been running for years, where it's really student-based, student inquiry-based driven. And really what it came down to, when I got down, we met with Angela Labor, and we want to thank you for that, because she was incredible to work with. And by the time I walked back, I had to, shoot Irene Tully a text and say, listen, we're going back to incorporating everything all together in one. And, she was that's just the way she naturally thought, was everything matched up. All the different concepts are all timed together into one big project. So that is our goal. So the anchor phenomenon is like an event, and it's drives the student inquiry. And all we're doing is we're taking something that is in the outside world and making it relevant to them. So an example of like having that phenomenon is anything where the kids are just like thinking, like we always have like a focused question that we're trying to get the kids to answer. Now what this is, instead of just one for the lesson, it's a whole overarching one for the entire project. So in the beginning, like one of the things we're doing in 5th grade and 4th grade is looking at a whole project with magnets, but the overarching is how can we learn to control magnetism? We show them a giant big crane picking up a car, and in the beginning it's like, how does the crane do that? Now, how can we control magnetism? What are some things we can do to make that happen? So their goal throughout the unit is to do little labs and towards the end, reach that ending goal. So for them, the whole goal is it makes it more meaningful. We have to align it to these standards, make it interesting for them so that they feel like they're in that learning process. They're discovering it for the first time themselves. And that was really my best way of understanding how that worked. And I love that part of it. So this tiny little wording is the change in the standards. And the top part you're going to see, what that is the student performance expectations. Basically, what are they going to do? By the time that we're done with that standard, what are they physically going to be able to show us that they can actually perform? On the left side, those are the different engineering practices that we want from them, such as they will be able to design certain events, come up with different ideas. In the middle, you have the disciplinary. those are like the contents that they're going to be learning. And on the right, those are the cross-cutting where doing comparing and contrasting all the little different skills that you use throughout all different kinds of units. So the main part is adding all those things together, plus having those top performance-based skills that we're going to see. So it really just kind of wraps it all together. But if you notice, what is on top? That's the key, is the performance-based skills of what are they going to do to show that they can tackle some of these tasks. Can you go on, Jim? Thanks. Student performance expectations. So the student performance is their ability to apply these practices to their content. So besides just reading about and studying a certain topic of magnets, they have to be able to perform some of these different tasks to make it work. So opposed to memorizing the facts of how magnets work, they have to go and show their ability to understand how they are going to work and using different skills to make that happen. And the key with that, with the frameworks, is it shows that the practices must be intertwined with all different parts. Each grade is going to have a certain performance skill that they should be able to do, and it all just constantly builds upon each other. And the performance versus the curriculum. The key part from the science standards is they are students' performance expectations, which is different from the curriculum part. So the key with this here is that as we're going through is what the children will know and be able to do. So the key part that you're seeing over and over again, they keep talking about is what are they going to know and what can they physically do? And those are the two different things that we're really focusing on. All right. Two key points to understand. First is taking a look at each grade we're working on, and we've been doing this part for years in K-5, building upon each one. And the flow that we're trying to move all the way through the upper grades as well is making sure that in each grade we are going to have a physical science, we're going to have an earth science, and we're going to have a biology. And each one of those are going to build upon each other as we go. In second grade, we have a unit called plants and animals, where they learn the parts of the plants. And then as we move up into third grade, we start taking those different parts and building it into a more advanced parts of the plants, turning those into hydroponics, and learning more about the structures of the plants. So every year, it's like a scaffolding of where we're going to go all the way up through 8th grade. And going into the deeper understanding. So the key thing there, the part that I bolded, it's important that the teachers and the developers understand the focus is on the core ideas, not necessarily the facts that go with each one. So what we're doing is we're basically going to take one big concept of weather and water, and we're going to dig really deep into that subject to get more of a better understanding, instead of quickly skimming through, going through ideas of just memorizing certain facts. So now we're going to go into how we're really going to make this happen. So this is an example of the next generation science standards through FOSS. And this is what our ending result is going to be. So you see in the lower ones, we have K through 2, 3 through 5, and then 6, 8 is a mixture of the way the standards are going to work for all the different ones. So FOSS came to us and gave us somewhat of a layout of where we want to go from there. So on the next slide, John, if you can go to that one, this is where we are K-5 at this point. So in general, because I teach everything K-5 at one point, we didn't really have to move things around as much. But now there's been some changes. One of the things we want to do is really start aligning. So by the time they left me in 5th grade, we covered all those topics. With some changes, I don't have 1st grade or kindergarten. It's time for us to really readjust everything so that each grade is going to have those topics, no matter who is running that show or what. So our goal is to take what we have, and if you notice, there's not a lot of huge changes going on. What we're really doing is really changing how we're teaching these things. So here is how we're going to get to this point. We have each year, we're gonna have to do a little build on how we're going to get this to happen. So Mrs. Lyden has taken over with 7th grade and half of 6th grade. Mr. Schwab also is 6th grade. So our goal over time, when we met with Helen from the company, was scaffolding this so that we can match up with those standards in about 3 years' time. So we're doing all these different ones, but some of the things are going to be moving around. So you might notice that 6th and 7th grade this year are both doing chemical interaction and both doing weather and water. And this way, when we talked with Mr. Schwab about what he would like going towards 8th grade, we wanted to make sure we had all these little bases covered for this group that will be in 8th grade in a couple of years. So in 2022 and next year, we'll start making slight changes, and if Johnny can go down to the last slide, and we'll soon have it laid out the way that our curriculum is supposed to align. So the one thing you're probably looking at is, if you see in 6th grade, we have a earth science, 2 biologies. 7th grade, we have a physical science, and earth science, a biology. And the reason why in 8th grade that we have more of those physical science in there is they said those are pretty hard concepts for the older kids to get, and they felt like that was the year. And also the fact that they're smaller units. You know, it looks like in 6th grade, there's only 3 main units in there, but each of those units are going to be long and very in-depth. Any questions so far? A lot to process. One of the things we worked on now, John, I'm not sure, I tried sharing some of these things with you, but when we met with Angela over the summer, the goal was to take each of the science units and start incorporating all the other areas into it. And so we started doing a little bit of that work right there. And an example of that is in 5th grade, we made some stream tables where we created the Grand Canyon, and we were working on like how is a dam going to affect erosion. So we could use our technology class with the 3D printers to be able to build some dams and levees to create that. So that's one of the ways we're trying to tie things together. Mrs. Kelly and I did a great physics of science unit together, where I was doing the science part of sound, and she was creating the different instruments in her class. So we're trying to slowly just incorporate everything as we go together. And that was Angela's real big point, was we're going to start off with some overarching phenomenon and then combine everything together to try to get to that one understanding. And that's one of our main goals with that. You skip down one, John? So going to the options of how we're going to get this to work. So we thought about this for a while, and right now we have, Megan has jumped in this year and is doing a phenomenal job doing 6th and 7th grade. And I gotta say, I'm gonna have Megan talk a little bit about what that experience was, because when you step into something like that, you know, I luckily went through the same thing where with Lisa Seth, and she goes, okay, we're going to come into this brand new curriculum. This is the way we want to do it. What do you think? And it's just one of those things you have to jump in. So I wanted to ask Megan, what her thoughts are, because I've been doing this for years over time, and you know, there's a lot of challenges, but she just jumped right in and it's ready to go.
I'm happy
So-
to speak to that.
Sure. Come on over.
Oh, now? No, I didn't mean now, but you speak to it, just tell-
Okay, I'll speak to this part. So here is my vision of how we can improve upon what we have now. And we have a really fantastic system. You know, we're one of the few schools, East Hampton, Montauk, have all jumped on board and shown the importance of having the kids, you know, coming to a science class and getting that hands-on class going. But our goal is to have a little more consistency when it comes to that. So my first option, and my favorite option, would be to hire somebody who would just be the sole focus of K-2. Right now I have 3 through 5, and just the change in having 3rd grade twice a week and how much farther we can go in some of these topics has been a huge gift. And having someone in K-2 where, because we don't have that room, the person will be able to push into those classes, do some of those great hands-on experiments. The classroom teachers would be able to then tie in their own mystery science activities and tie it in with some of the reading and writing that goes along with it. And with that combination going all the way up, I mean, these kids would have a really great grasp of having some 2 hands-on projects plus some extra ones in the room, from kindergarten all the way going up into 8th grade. and it would just be beautiful. You know, the other option, I was asked to make another option, is part of the reason that my job was creative was we were doing a lot of FOSS and Now FOSS, as Megan will definitely talk about, is an absolute ton of setup. It's a lot of materials. And organizing that is quite a trial. And it became to the point where it was quite an overwhelming amount during the day with all the 75 other things that elementary teachers have to do. So when they created that position, this way the kids would be able to come into a room separate, get excited about science, have somebody running some of those hands-on activities, and that is where we're really trying to work on getting that into the younger grades as well. So when someone pushes in, they come with all the material set up, they can help organize it, and the kids will really get like a great lab experience. Hopefully in the future, we can find like a room for that down the road, if possible. But now I'm just, reaching for anything. So that's our goal. Moving forward with all of this is not too much of changing the topics that we're doing, just how we're doing it, going a little bit more deeper. Because the one thing that I get to see is that, not everybody is always a test taker. I see some kids that will come in, and what they do on that 20-minute test compared to what I see them do with them with their hands for those 6 weeks open to that unit is such a dramatic difference. They might not really understand what the question's asked and get something wrong, but if I give them like a piece of steel, some wire, a couple of washers and a battery, they're going to make an electromagnet out of that. So that hands-on performance part is really key, especially for all different groups. There's all different kinds of ways. That kinesthetic learning, some kids really flourish in that. And Mr. Schwab can definitely attest to that when it comes to the robotics. We've seen a huge change in what these kids can do when you give them a task and have them have a chance to get their hands on there and do it. So with Mrs. Leiden, the one thing I would love you guys to hear is, what is some of the things that she notices as some fresh eyes on this program and her take on what it's like?
Sure. Veterans mixed with fresh eyes. It's a good combo. Hi there. It's really good to be here and talking with you about this. I feel like a little bit of an imposter, though. This is something I'm learning alongside phenomenal colleagues and with the support of our board and administration, and it's been so wonderful. And honestly, so many things are coming to mind, but one of the things that I wanted to say first is just, Sean was just sort of describing a student, right? And I think at least so many of us, if not all of us, can probably picture like faces and names are coming to mind of those kiddos that we work with all the time that do demonstrate learning and learn in different ways. And so I hope you kind of hold on to that image of those folks, because I think picturing them and sort of how they would experience this curriculum based on these new standards is important. It really helps to conceptualize how good it can be. One of the things that I wanted to say coming into this is that, and it's an anecdote you might have heard me share before, because it's something I shared with our families at open house. In the beginning of the year, I just wanted to get to know my students in a couple of different ways. Who are you in school? Who are you outside of school? How do you identify in terms of what your interests are and what things have challenged you in the past? And one of the questions that we sort of sprinkled into that getting to know you piece was like, what is science? And they had all these amazing things to say about it, right? It's investigating, exploring, solving problems. But asking a similar question, do you identify as a scientist? It wasn't quite there, and they did not make the connection, overwhelmingly so, and I'm sure the co-teachers that I work with could speak to that because they remember that. And that was really eye-opening, and it's exciting to hear us talking about integrating more and more science experiences at younger ages, because they are scientists, and they do want to and genuinely thrive when they're engaging in all of the science and engineering practices that are at the core of this next generation science standards and of the curriculum that endorses these standards. If only we can provide those opportunities for them more and more. So what has it been like? It's been a hoot. I'm absolutely enjoying it. And I wish, maybe I'll ask tomorrow, to the kiddos, like, how are you liking this? And I honestly think that if you have these conversations with them, that they might speak really positively of their experiences. And I think that has a lot to do with the fact that we are constantly in the lab. And yes, like you said, that's at the expense of my time, and Vicki Firemark can attest to this. I'm keeping our lab a constant mess. It's one mess turning into another mess into another one.
We love it.
She embraces the chaos, but it for all that it's worth, it creates experiences on a daily basis where we're really getting to see things in action. Some of the, again, science and engineering practices that align with next generation science standards are things like, planning and conducting investigations. So for example, just today is coming to mind, we, rather than saying, here's what we're doing in the lab today, it's a lot more of, I wonder if wax can melt, or I wonder how in the classroom we could get water to freeze. What do you think we could try? And then they're coming up with the ideas, and it feels very organic, and it comes from them, and then all the more intrinsic interest in actually seeing it through. And okay, so what are some constraints we might have in the lab today, or what are some variables that we have to consider? Should we all be measuring the same amount of water? How will we do that? And making the plan with them, even though you have this vision, right? I mean, we're guiding the experience, we're facilitators, but giving them so much autonomy in terms of those science and engineering decisions that have to be placed along the way makes such a difference. They seem motivated. I think they're having fun. And I think the content is still being understood, in fact, absorbed in a very different way. This is not maybe what some of our experiences were like when we were students once upon a time in terms of memorizing content, taking the test, on to the next unit. It's very much the opposite. And I don't think anything gets thrown out with that. I don't think the understanding isn't developed. I think it's quite the opposite. It seems even more deeper and more meaningful. Whoa, sorry, I just spoke way too much. I apologize. I hope that was helpful.
Yes, it was.
A little bit of insight just into a day in the life. And if you're interested, I don't know, come on by and see what we're doing. Or ask the kiddos. Thanks for talking and letting me talk too.
You guys are clearly very excited about this, and teachers who are excited about stuff that, that trickles down to kids who are very excited about stuff when you're engaging them and giving them agency, and it's not dictating to them, but allowing them to explore, because what kid doesn't like to explore and to do things and to have some say, how they're doing something, get to figure it out for themselves. That's how, yeah.
And they get, Mr. Schwab and I were able to take the 8th grade and 5th grade out to the Day in the Life, the Conic one. And, the earth science part is a huge part of the curriculum. And it was just great to bring the kids out there. Eric was excited. I went to him and was like, hey, what do you think about taking 8th grade out, doing some water quality testing, seeing what's going on in our local areas? And, he just jumped right on that.
Wonderful. Great, thanks. So, you have your work cut out for you, and, we seem to have our work cut out for us. That this is something that the board can certainly talk about as we, go forward into this budget season, seeing what new things will fit into what we have coming up for this year. So we'll certainly take a look at that. But congratulations on all the work that you put into it already, and your re-envisioning of things that, it sounds like a great time to be a kid studying science.
That's great story. Joy, can I ask that you please post that PowerPoint, give it to Julie so it can be on the board agenda, so anybody missing tonight's meeting could, click on it and see it?
Sure. No problem. Thank you.
Thank you very much, everyone who presented this evening. I really appreciate your being here too. And we have an item of recognition now. Christine?
Sure. So, as they say, the show must go on. And that's exactly what happened last Thursday with the 81 Mighty Ones fourth grade opera team. They wrote, directed, produced a beautiful, amazing fourth grade original script and musical called Better Together. It had a message of empathy and kindness, which is something we all need right now, I think. The kids were so excited to perform in front of a live audience. We did have to scale back this year due to COVID. So it was performed in front of the fourth grade. There was two troops. Two troops were created by the directors, and each troop performed in front of the rest of the kids. There were costumes. There was a beautiful set design. There were composers. Everything, you name it. It was a full-scale production in our small gym, and it really felt good. Miss Winter and I were brought to tears on several occasions. I said I laughed, I cried. It was really amazing. So I just wanted to sort of just mention a few of the key players. Miss London was our coordinator, and she had a team of others that helped out as far as the production company. It was Megan Kelly, who was our music teacher, Ashley Delapola, Amanda Waleco, Laura Marino, John Gibbons, Morgan Bach, Dylan Green, and Carol Brownlee. And then, of course, our student performers and our writers and our composers and our directors, and even our stagehands and our actors. It really did. It was a full company production, and the kids, you could just see how excited they were to be in front of a live audience. And it was recorded, and the recording is being edited currently, and it should be done by next week, and we'll post it on the website for all to see.
They will get certificates.
So each group, all the performers will get certificates from her.
And all the participants from Martin Luther King will get a copy of the proclamation.
Lots of exciting, good things happening here at Spring School.
So we want to have a board meeting.
Yeah.
All the great stuff that's going on here, right? Not just some boring old business that we have to do. So it's now time for public commentary number 1 on our items of board business, which relate to personnel, finance, just personnel and finance this month. So if anybody has a question about the items on the agenda at this time, you can ask LTV, you can, we'll take a call if somebody has a question on one of these items at this time.
We have no callers on the line.
Okay, thank you. So do you want to go ahead with
I
personnel?
will go ahead with personnel. So the first item, A, is a sick pay for an employee from the Teachers Association for 5 days there. That leads into item B, family medical leave recommendation there for an employee. A stipend for boys basketball that includes chief stepped in when our coach was out. Substitutes, we are still getting the payment for substitutes. This time it's a custodial worker and a clerical who's bilingual. We also found a security guard that could fill in part-time as well. They serve as a parent in the district as well as being a former in a Caribbean one. Appointment of Jessica Meckinson, teacher assistant. We board approved her per diem, but she finished her certification and now she is a teacher assistant. So there is appointment there. We have stipends. Some of them go back to backstage at the opera for Morgan Bach, and then some are for our collegial circles. We have special circle for UNL. We have Sarah Jeffcoat and Kimberly Royal, Margaret Garasetti. These are the special circles that take place after school. As you know, we have a great deal of difficulty right now getting substitutes, so most of our professional development has to be done after school hours. These are the facilitators. You have literacy professional circles, Tracy Frazier and Lisa Bowen. basketball season and volleyball season, they swap. You have a early winter and then you have a late winter. So there's Victoria Hoffman, John King, Joe Palomino, and Kimberly Royal. And next board meeting, you'll have a report from our athletic director and how well our teams did and our coaches. And again, an emphasis on 7th and 8th grade is on sportsmanship and working together as well as being, physically playing. We have tenure recommendations tonight. I hope Alexandra Colon is with us. Yeah. Yeah. She's online. Alexandra has been with the district for 4 years. She has been in mostly special education classrooms wherever she's needed. She is out there early morning. She's out there on our buses. Mrs. Cleary will chime in. She is just an all-around caring team player. Just besides her colleagues, just respect her and always, speak very highly of her. So it's my pleasure tonight to recommend her for tenure. I and Jay are extensions for their tenure due to either a leave of absence or maternity. So you have 2 teachers there. And then letter K is the New York State School Board's School Superintendent's Conference in Albany in March. I normally don't attend, but with everything going on, the agenda has to do with innovation and imagination, thinking out of the box. I thought it was a good topic, and it's not far to travel to Albany for that conference. So that would be for myself.
Great, thank you. So I believe we have Tim and Dave still online with us. Do either of you have any questions about any of these items at this time?
Yeah, again, I'm going to have to recuse myself from one of those tonight.
Casey. Okay. So Dave, are you there?
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay, you're there. Pat had to leave briefly, so we will need to,
If Pat comes back, we can
revisit, go back to Jay.
Right, we go back to Jake.
Yeah.
Right, that's what I would suggest.
Yeah. So at this time, do I have a motion to approve personnel items A through F and H through K to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in
Second.
favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you.
We'll go on over to finance at this time and plan on coming back to G, when we can.
All right, item 6 is the finance information. Item A is your appropriation status report that was submitted to the board's review. B is the revenue status report. Those are informational items in group 6. Group 7 are the warrants for December 2021. And in there was the major expenditures report associated with it. Item B is the claims audit report for December 2021 from the internal claims auditor. Item C is the actual engagement letter from Cullen and Danowski, who perform the accounting services at year-end and monthly bank reconciliation services. They were approved at the reorg meeting, and it's just been a little bit crazy trying to get the actual contract over from them. And that's it for finance items.
Great. Do Tim or Dave, do you have any questions on these?
No.
So, Tim, are you still there?
I'm still here. Yes.
Well, we lost your photo there. Okay. So do I have a motion to move finance items A through C to consent agenda?
Motion.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And then, in addition, we need to approve some meeting minutes, so, be it resolved that the Board of Education, hereby approves the minutes from the December 21st, 2021 regular meeting. Do I have a motion?
Motion.
Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
We will move on now to our superintendent's report.
Thank you. So the first report, letter A, is our enrollment report. If we compare ourselves to last year at this time, we are up a total of about 45 students, ironically. That is including pre-K. Our high school, there has been no new enrollment this past month. Our high school is at a strong 360. And we continue to check on enrollment for the high school as well as our students at the elementary school. And we will have a thorough look at enrollment as we do budget. I have another announcement tonight. The Spring School District is receiving another bullet aid from Fred Field, Senator Fred Field, for $25,000. We will have some discussions on the appropriate use of it. One of the themes this year from the State Education Department is parent engagement. And again, due to COVID, some of those activities have been put on the back burner, but maybe as the spring comes along, there are some things that we can do to, engage our parents and support our parents.
Okay.
More to come on that.
Our assembly is very good to us. We really appreciate this aid that he's been able to give us.
He reaches out very often, Barbara, to ask how we're doing, if there's anything that we need, and same thing with the Mohammed King. He was just impressed. I sent him the video, and that's when he offered to do the proclamation for the student. He is very good. We thank him very much for that. On another note, I am really, really excited about letter C. The New York State Education Department awarded $13 million in universal pre-K expansion grants to 31 school districts across the state. The grants enable school districts to increase their pre-kindergarten availability to 4-year-old students. The department awarded these competitive grants based on a district's plan to serve the community's highest need students, the level of existing pre-K services, and to the extent in which the district planned to maximize the number of eligible 4-year-old children served in its programs, among other factors. These funds could be used starting as early as now, or for the 22-23 school year, and would be repeat, just like our other $62,000 that we have. I wrote for this grant this past summer, and I'm happy to report that Springs was one of only 6 districts on Long Island that received this grant. The grant is for $420,000 to serve 42 full-time UPK students in addition to the current funding for 23 half-day students. The district could choose to convert the 23 half-day slots into 12 additional full-time slots to service a total of 56 UPK students. 6 of these students would be served by just kids on that integrated side that they need the gen ed student on, and the other 36 students would be served by Spoke in a full-day program with 2 classes in the front of the SYU building. We do need another classroom to serve those additional 12 students. And our registration goes up to that number. Our registration for UPK started on January 17th. So a nice article in both our East Hampton Press and our Star would be great. We have some flyers that we want to post in the community to advertise the program. All children residing in Springs 4 years of age by December 1st, 2022 are eligible. Registration forms are online, and the lottery will be pulled probably before February break. I'll keep the board apprised of the numbers, and I think we are going to see a significant increase in the number of students because of the full day program.
And this will be for the fall.
Yes. Okay.
That's great news. Deb, I think you deserve a round of applause for really going after this grant. You were determined to get it to serve as many of our children as I can. So
And I was in the middle of being in a closet and out of our office and stuff, I was construction. But really, when you talk about equity, all the surrounding districts fund a full day EPK program. So I think that was my biggest argument. And again, anytime I write a grant, I send it to Fred Beal, and I think he puts a good word in for us.
So Dan, I also want to thank you because I know how much time that took. But I also am hearing in this additional classroom, if we want to, do what we intended to do. And I also heard another classroom for science. So that's 2 additional classrooms for next year. That's something we're going to have to talk about.
Absolutely.
Another capital project.
It's interesting that and we're already out of room. So.
Is that amazing?
Yeah.
When I think back though, on this new space, and if we didn't have this new space this year, where we would be, I cringe.
Yeah.
We definitely would be in a different place. So, it's great that we did what we did, but at this point, as we look for the future, it's going to be a good discussion about how we're going to accomplish everything we want to.
Space has definitely helped. Letter D, a mask update. And if I appear exhausted today, it's because the phone did not stop last night. Email started late last night into early morning regarding the state Supreme Court's decision in Nassau County that struck down the mask mandate that was placed via regulation. The court rendered its decision on the challenge late Monday afternoon and has permanently enjoined the enforcement of the mask mandate required by Regulation 2.60, finding that the regulation is unconstitutional. Just a week before, though, the state Supreme Court in Albany upheld the New York State Department's decision mandating masks in schools. So here you have 2 different courts within a week of each other coming to 2 different conclusions. Bingham & Smith, our attorneys, issued guidance indicating as a result of the court's determination, schools are no longer authorized to mandate the wearing of masks in schools. This decision does not require a board of resolution to implement. Notwithstanding the foregoing, there is nothing in the court's decision which precludes students or staff from continuing to wear masks. At 12:35 a.m. this morning, the governor and the State Department of Health filed a notice of appeal, and we're seeking an emergency injunction to stay. While these legal steps occur, it is the New York State Education Department's position that schools should continue to follow the New York State Department of Health mask rule. Oral arguments regarding the Department of Health's request for a stay of Justice Randmaker's order was heard by the Appellate Division by Justice Robert Miller today at 2 p.m. Their technology was not working very well, and you got every other word of the proceedings. At approximately 5 p.m., the Appellate Division granted the application by the Department of Health and the Governor's Office confirming the lower court's decision is stayed until January 28th, Friday, when both sides are presenting arguments at 10 a.m. That will also be live that someone can watch it. As such, the mask mandate remains in effect for schools across the state during the appeal process. We personally received some phone calls from both sides today, emails and phone calls. We saw our positivity rate go from 40 students to 10 students this past week. We saw our student absentee rate go from 25% to 7%. There was only 1 staff member out due to COVID. As Christine and I and Josh walk around the building, and you heard some great activities that are going on, we observed full compliance by our students and our staff. Our staff greet our students warmly every day. They're gently reminded if their masks are needed when they walk into the building. Our bus drivers have monitors on them, and they're reminded gently to wear their mask. Today, I'm happy to report we had no positive cases of students or staff. We continue to keep you updated on the process of the appeal. I thank everybody for my patience and cooperation, and I know we're in this almost 3 years now. If as adults we find this all consuming, I can't imagine how our children feel. We continue to strive to give them opportunities to excel, and we support them emotionally. I want to thank those parents who reached out to us today in emails and by phone calls on both sides of the argument to voice their concerns. I realize your patience is wearing. You are not alone. I want to point out, though, that this appeal has nothing to do with masks on our buses. That's a separate regulation. It comes from the CDC. It's pursuant to Section 361 of the Public Health Service Act that requires all individuals to wear masks on public transportation, and that includes buses. So there was a lot of confusion in other districts this morning where they had offered parent choice, and then the students tried to get on buses and were refused because they refused to put masks on. So I went around to every bus driver informing them that no matter what the decision on Friday, mask on buses is still needed. It was one of those days that we were all in this together, from our superintendents, our nurses. The staff got emails as late as last night, as early as this morning. The parents, yes, I'll apologize that my email did not go out as early as East Hampton, but I am driving at 5 a.m. So as soon as I got here, those emails went out, and yes, we use Google Translate when we don't have clerical staff that can translate. I thought it was more important this morning that the word get out sooner than later, so I did use Google Translate. There was a concern there that, we have staff that can translate, but we don't have staff at those hours to translate. I thought it was more important to get the word out as soon as possible, so. Stay tuned. I will be on vacation Thursday through Tuesday, but of course I will be glued to my phone on Friday to see what the outcome is, if there is an outcome. Both sides have to present themselves.
Now that you're here, we're going to go back to a finance item that we need to approve. Tim had to excuse himself.
I apologize.
That's all right. So we're going to go to personnel, actually. Yeah.
Page 4.
Item G on the stipends. That we need to approve. Yes, so let me say, be it resolved that the Board of Education hereby approves the following stipends for the 2021-2022 school year as per the collective bargaining agreement between the Springs UFSD and the Springs Teacher Association. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion.
Second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye.
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 Great, thank you. We have a couple items of old business here. We have another quote for the capital project plaque. Did everyone get a chance to look at this? It is a smaller size. The original one, the other previous plaques were actually
24 by
36. We played around with the layout, and Ocean Graphics has given us an estimate now for a sign that is 24 by 13 of 2,553.
And Parsons and BBS will contribute.
So that sounds better.
I know, for the plaque.
The two pieces of paper that were in the conference room, I didn't call it out to you, that was behind Barbara. The 13 by 24 was the longer one, and the bigger one was the 24 by 37.
Yeah, I know, the other two board members go through this, you have to sign up and all that stuff. I just wondered. You would, there's only back to the school to the students first. Depends on the plaque.
It'll cost the district about $800.
Fantastic.
And then we did get a sign design from John Longo for the front of the building. I don't know that this is really what we had in mind. Tim, did you have a chance to look at this?
No.
What's up, board up?
It's on board docs, yeah.
What it looks like is some brick with a sign in the middle, not an electronic sign, just a sign that says spring school. But I think we have to talk about location as well. I know that the old front is where you were looking to put a sign, but really our entrance is on Holmstone Highway now.
So what's here is kind of big, and considering the fact that this is now the back of the school, I don't know that we want to put something this big.
I drove by the school the other day, and I thought it'd be kind of cool if we could do it. I don't know if we could fit up there. It was above the old entrance. There's that small triangle by your office. I think the office was there, it's still there. There's the old entrance, and there is a facade there.
Right.
I don't know how big it is, and we can decide to stay in spring school there.
Right.
I have Ocean Graphics coming out next week, and he's gonna walk the property with me.
There's big brick thing we don't want to do.
I mean, we could say something like there had been maybe the Little League sign had been near the bus loop. We could have a sign there that says Spring School Bus Loop. I mean, then you see that, you know, it's like the spring school and that it's not for cars to drive in. But, you know, putting something on the building is also possible. If anything, we should have a better sign where our new entrance is, like on either side, something on either side on Old Stone Highway. As a more.
How about Old Stone Highway, there should be a sign at
Yeah.
spring school entrance.
Yes.
Or something like that, California.
Yeah.
And
So I think this idea we were talking about originally replacing what was there, I think this is not the direction that we need to go in.
I know you want to do something, you always plan on doing something in the circle out there, turnaround. That's why the electricity out there, we're going to put some sign out there. If we do something there, no, I want to put something.
Yeah,
Right.
art looks really look
Well, I
nice
think
there.
that's for, electricity in case we ever wanted to, something
Yeah.
like that.
Put a spot like that.
This is not much different than the festival we took down
Right,
in front of
yeah.
school.
So this is not the direction we want to go. I think we need to, they're coming out, we can have a little look around, see what would be some way to just have it say spring school on this side and have more of a proper entrance sign at the.
What a big grass osprey. Any other?
No, I would agree with that, Barbara. I think we need to rethink it. And I think there might be some local artists in the community that would be interested maybe in donating something to the school. I don't know. Maybe I want to pursue that.
All right, we will still talk further about this.
Right, it would just be nice to see something on school, on the school saying this is spring school.
Correct.
Okay, that wraps up our old business. It is time for public commentary number 2. If anybody has any questions on either the agenda or something else that they want to bring to the board's attention, now would be the time to do so, either in the audience or on phone end.
We have a caller on the line.
Take the call, I'm sorry.
Okay. I will take the phone.
Take the caller.
Good evening, school board. This is David Buddha. I hope you can hear me. Can you?
Yes.
Okay, great. My question or comment is with regard to the enrollment report. Deb and Mike will know that I had sent Deb an email, 2 emails today, which she forwarded to Mike. And as a result, the format and the readability of the Excel spreadsheet and the accuracy of some of the data on the top of the form has been corrected, but there still remains one ambiguity, and I would like to ask for clarification because the number of current high school students is stated differently in 2 places. In cell C25, it's stated to be 352 students, and in cell E25, it's stated to be 360 students. I note that in December, the number that was reported was, let's see if I have it here, 358. So my question is, what is the correct, accurate, current number of high school students from the Springs?
Dave, I didn't have a chance to research that for you today. I want to go back and look at the actual bill.
Okay, because you do report from month to month in your enrollment reports, which I greatly appreciate. You have shown the changes in the high school population, All I'm saying is that right now in your report, there's, I think, either an error or an ambiguity because you have 2 different numbers reported and only one of them can be accurate.
I understand. I just didn't have a chance to look at that today.
All right. Well, when you do get the right number, I'd appreciate if you'd let me know. Thank you. I'd like to know if the trend is going down or going up or staying the same from previous month.
I know for a fact that one student was enrolled in East Hampton, was living in Springs. That I know for a fact. So the 360 next month will be 359. If that number is correct.
Right. So you'll look into that. Great. Thank you very much. Thank you, Rowan.
You're welcome.
LTV, are there any other callers at this time?
No, we have no callers.
Okay, we have a member of the audience who had.
Hi, how are you? I'm Megan Payne, and I was just here to give you an update on PTA. We had a fantastic meeting last week. A few months ago, a parent had a suggestion of creating a parent liaison group. So we had a large number of parents volunteer, and they're going to be the communication between the PTA and their classroom teachers and parents so that we have a constant flow of communication between the 2 groups. We really hope that's going to reinforce and build the parent-school relationship. In addition, we have skate night is booked at Buckskill for 6th to 8th grade from 5 to 6:45, and Christine is already great enough to get the flyers out for us. Where my colleagues are pushing a deeper science education, I'm pushing popcorn. We need the turkey trot. We got enough funds to send every child on a field trip. Our goal is to get them over the Shinnecock. So we're going to the aquarium, Bethpage, I'm going to forget one, and the Mets game. What we do need to still raise funds for are the jitneys to send the grades 4 through 8 up. So selling popcorn, each grade level needs to raise $500. And beyond that, we are also preparing on the 15th of February, we'll have our first meeting to discuss the mystery art show. And Christy is volunteering, Kristen Monza, to join us on that to help lead a group of volunteer parents. And then after that, we're going to be talking about graduations, Easter egg hunts, and another big fundraiser we have in the works is a parent-teacher night out. So we're hoping to lock down a restaurant of some sort and have an adult night out where we can all have adult fun and get to know each other in a nicer way. I don't know if that sounds good.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That sounds great. Thank you very much.
We'll add that to the report for the regular meeting.
Okay, LTV, just checking that in case there are any callers.
Still no callers.
In that case, do I have a motion to adjourn?
Right.
So she can set up her own underneath.
Second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Great.
Thank you, everybody.
Good night.
Yes,
Okay.
My name.